steering wheel. Lapse of steering wheel here. Give him steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on! Whoa!
Your leg, mate, please. Your leg.
How the f*** is this possible?
I'm driving like a grandma.
Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me?
From a radio, the rest of the race.
Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him.
We've got a lunatic on the track down the hanging straight.
I am so annoyed.
Hello and welcome back inside the Park for May for podcast number 884. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
AKA Negative Camber. You know what we do on race weekends.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's exactly what we do. And tonight, we're going to review the Chinese Grand Prix because that just happened this weekend, but I got to introduce my guest. You know who it is. It's the sporting manager for the Harder Racing Aston Martin team and the IMSA WEC SRO all-around good guy. Gosh, that racing CV is getting huge, Paul. It's Paul Charsley, the international.
That's nice.
I know. Isn't that nice? Yeah, I know.
Yes,
my
it is nice.
board
I like it. I like it.
Kind of funky, kind of good.
Yeah.
Paul, you were fifth in Imola in Italy. You had a busy weekend. You were fifth in Imola. You were third in SRO. And then you guys go out and hire in seasoned veteran hot shoe Spencer Pompelli, who's doing a great job with Roman. And then a Porsche takes you out. What the heck's going on there?
Yeah, that sucked. But man, I got a lot of frequent flyer miles this week, Flying between Imola and Long Beach. Didn't get a wink of sleep. But the boys in Imola, great job. Tricky race. Right. I don't know if you saw it. Like one part of the track, the old saying, it was dry in the other, basically for like hours.
Yeah,
and,
I did.
So it was a real tricky dries and stuff like that. So they didn't make the right call, but it's hard to say what would have been the right call. But ended up being fifth, but they're still second in the championship, so that is that's a positive weekend, and they had success ballast, so that makes it harder to be competitive. So good job for them. Ian and Alex hadn't to Imola before. What a great track! They enjoyed it a lot, but so they were learning the track. So good one for the WEC team. The SM got a pole position at Long Beach, and Gray did, and he got third in the two races, but competitive car for the IMSA team. The 27 car was actually really good. Top three for sure. And it was as we get from a resident Lamborghini driver that always causes schmozzles at the hairpin in turn 11, and we were I think in second place at that time, and everything stopped, lock jam at turn 11. We went all the way. We're fighting with people we shouldn't have been fighting with at that point, and little Larry with their front bumper and knocked us in the wall, and we were out. I'm out, as Mr. Vettel liked to say.
Yes.
You don't have that because your soundboard. It would have been a good one.
Oh, I may. I don't know. My soundboard took a dump. I don't know why. Oh, here it is.
I'm out!
There you go. That's much what Spencer was saying over the radio.
Yes.
Yeah, that trailer afterwards. He was ready to go get that guy. I was like, no, we don't stuff. So we'll just take it on chin and move on. So. Yeah, Long Beach is a great event though. Saw a lot of Parc Fermé.
Yeah, people, that was tough to see.
Audience listeners, so that was cool. Got to chat to a few of them, so that's always good. Long Beach is a great event if you don't come away with a lot of points, but I love going there. So it's one of the best races of the year, I'd say.
You had a chance to bump into your old friend Zach Brown.
Yes, I did bump into Zach on the grid, actually. He told me to get my hair. I'm not quite sure what he meant by that. I wasn't ready for a job at McLaren, so maybe he thought I would. Yeah, right. Might give you a job. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, may need to cut your hair before Zach hires you over in Woking, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But I'm okay with where I am, so that's all right. It was good to see him. I should have talked to him more, really, but it was our race, so I had to get down. But it was good to see him. Said hello. Surprising.
Good catch up with Zach.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where he makes his decision process on whether to be at an IndyCar race or at a Formula One race. You know, they got a lot of stuff going on at McLaren, and also we're against WEC. He's got two McLarens racing against us in WEC, so I could have stuck the elbow there for that because we've beaten them so far this year. Yeah,
it's interesting. I was a little surprised he was at Long Beach, but thought he might be.
I'd choose Long Beach over going to China, I think. So.
Yeah, right. It's a good shout. Well, let's talk about China, the Chinese Grand Prix. We haven't been there since 2019. The track was said to have been resurfaced, but there was a lot of confusion, a lot of discussion over the weekend from Sky Sports about the bitumen and then it was coming up or what was going on. And then they were like, well, it's got like this. They put a liquid on it or something. I think it confused everyone. So for confusion's sake, over in the U.S., it's basically asphalt seal. It's like, when we have our asphalt driveways and we get them sealed, that's kind of what that is. It's a sealant they put over the top of it. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that the Chinese track is the same sort of asphalt that you and I would have for our driveways. Our driveways are much lower grade than what a real asphalt road is or a track. But same principles apply, and I think they were putting that asphalt sealant over the top of the asphalt.
What's that?
So there was that. What was interesting about that is that there was, I would say, it seemed to me that the discussion of track evolution was very on target as they started the weekend. And so it seemed like on Friday and Saturday, maybe that evolution was happening quite a bit more than by the time they got to Sunday. I don't know that track evolution was happening so much on Sunday as the degradation certainly was there and they were managing tires and struggling with it.
Temperature changes.
Temp changes and those kind of things. But this is a tough old track, Paul. Kind of a difficult.
It's not my favorite.
It's not my favorite either to watch. I haven't driven it, but it just seems like to me it would be. It's one of those tracks that when you watch the race, I don't get a sense of just sort of a rhythm, a cadence to that track. I don't know if it's that way when you're driving it, but
that first turn sure isn't fun. I mean, that's, where it just keeps turning, getting tighter and tighter. And that turn like that will never feel good because you never get just done. You're always on top of the track and just kind of feathering it through there because you can't get more power coming out, obviously, because it's getting tighter. You load up a little bit and then you just kind of, you're on a knife edge all the way through it, but not a very fun knife edge either. So, not big fan of the track, but it did. There was their little 8-9 offered passing opportunities that weren't DRS, so that was good. With different tire options and performance options, so we saw a few passes that weren't DRS. So at least it had that. And coming down that long straight, obviously that's kind of a classic view of the Chinese track, and a lot of stuff happens there as it did coming into the hairpin. Yeah, for sure. And it was a good turnout from reports. That was fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the first Chinese Grand Prix, they were busting kids in.
They were.
Didn't even know where they were going.
Right. Had no idea what they were doing.
Yeah. Where were we on this bus? Hello?
Why are we on a bus being sent somewhere? What are we doing?
I don't think this is good, Mum. But it was great to see the Chinese fans were there.
Yeah.
They were supporting their driver. Joe's obviously had a big impact on that. So it's great. You had Yuki in Japan. We had Joe in China, and I'm glad they heralded that and didn't just get stuck in the F1 format and allowed him to do a little thing at the end of the race too. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, it was a good nod to the fan base, and because clearly it's a market F1 that feels as an emerging market, and certainly with Joe in the sport, the fan base has grown significantly there, and so for them to have a nod, at the end of the race and allow Joe to park on the straight is very emotional for him. And as it would be to anyone. And so great to see that.
Logan Sargent's probably going to get the same thing when he goes to Miami.
Absolutely, same thing. Going to park up on the front straight, get out, wave to the fans. That's if he's got a chassis left or if he's allowed to drive. So we'll see.
Yeah, they should have a spare one by then.
You think? Yeah.
That's what they said.
Oh, okay. Fingers crossed. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the teams. We'll talk about Red Bull at the front, at the sharp end of the grid. You had Red Bull in P3 for Sergio Perez, P1 for Max Verstappen. Max led from pole, took the win with a car that he said was on rails. He said, anything I wanted to do with that car I could. That doesn't bode well for the rest of the grid when you got a driver saying that. Max said that the lessons they learned during the sprint race meant that the car on Sunday was a lot better to drive, more balanced, was quick anytime he needed it to be. And you could kind of see that maybe a little. I would say that Friday didn't seem to be quite as hooked up as it was on Sunday. You think the sprint race, he qualified back, had to come through to the front on the sprint race, did so, I wouldn't say with a punishing effect, but I would say that they did tweak the car in that open Park from May session in between the sprint race and the race. They were able to dial that in, I would say. But that car, come Sunday, Paul, just looked completely planted.
Definitely in his hands it did. Yeah, that's for sure. And I do applaud them for changing that whole park for rule, because that's a bit more sensible. Takes them a while to get to sensible decisions, but at least they got to it.
We're still waiting on the DRS sensibility, but yes.
Yeah, well, there's a few left over. Just still a few hanging. Right. But definitely, I mean, as Max and the Red Bull are a perfect match and pretty much unbeatable bar any issues. So it doesn't bode well for the rest of the season for sure. But there'll be a bit of to and fro.
Yeah.
But it Max and the Red Bull, it's not just the Red Bull and it's not just Max. It's both of them together, because Sergio is the, when you measure how Sergio doing, is he scything his way through the pack with ease? No. So it's definitely that combination is the deadly one.
Yeah. And speaking of Sergio, I mean, it was really the safety car that caught him out. Lost 2 places. Perez said that he overdid it in the battle with Charles, and ultimately he cooked his tires trying to get around Charles. And once he got around Charles, he just didn't have enough tire left to get to take the fight to Lando at that point, according to him. He is kind of that litmus test, and he did better in the sprint with Max. He was thereabouts, right? And I would say that the race didn't really have a choice. I don't know that I could say that Red Bull screwed the strategy up. It is what it is. The safety car came out, and there was enough distance between the cars. They didn't really necessarily have to stack them, but not to box them, I think would have been more difficult. So they did. Feeling that the car had the pace, and I would argue it probably did, but that's kind of down to Sergio and tire management, and I don't know. All in all, though, it's 117 wins in 15 years, and it was their 100th pole for this weekend, so that's quite a track record for Red Bull. But I don't know. How'd you see Sergio's race?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be a lot of things going on here, really. First off, I think Sergio settled down a little bit, and I think it might be just a bit more acceptance that he's not going to beat Max Verstappen. And he's definitely, and I think what he tried to do before was try to emulate Max. And you can't do that. You can't outmax Max. So I think he's settling a bit and driving like Sergio again. Right. And maybe a bit, except maybe Sergio in a Red Bull isn't as potent as Max in a Red Bull. On most days. I think he may have a couple of opportunities, a couple of tracks will suit him better than others. And obviously he fell back to third behind Alonso. That hurt him. The high deg was painful, so when you're driving behind somebody, that makes it even worse. Obviously he got put back again because of the safety car stuff. So he lost positions there and had to fight back. And I think they were on those hards, they didn't want to hit the cliff, right? Because the cliff could have been lethal to his finishing position. And once he got by Leclerc, I think he was trying, but probably, he said he took it off the tire. And if he'd really, really forced it and really tried to do something, he may have really taken that tire down. And then he would be very much vulnerable again for coming up behind. So I think once he got that position, I think he kind of accepted that that's where it was, which is good because we've seen him try to force things and that's been less than successful. So it gets him more points on the board. Obviously, from the Red Bull side, they want a first and second every time. And Sergio qualified second, but in that turn, Alonso did the Alonso thing and kind of scuppered their plans a little bit. So I don't think Sergio had a bad day, but it's who's going to be better than Max Verstappen in the Red Bull? I don't know. And so I think he's better, but he's not going to beat Max. But he will be the best right now. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. And I agree with that. I think Sergio looks better this year. I think he's driving well and looks more on point for sure this year.
I think he's under the gun to not be the number 2 at Red Bull, and that be the best place you could ever be, technically, right?
Yep.
And so I think he's trying to prove that why break something that isn't broken if he's there or thereabouts behind Max and getting all the points for the manufacturer.
Right. Let's see. Talk about McLaren, Lando, and Norris in P2, Oscar Piastri in P8. Lando had a good start. Was even leading during the first round of pit stops, and he stayed out longer. So staying out longer, they were taking advantage of the safety car when he came in. And that ultimately, I think, was kind of key to his second place, is that safety car getting that free stop or a cheaper stop time-wise. And I think he was able to convert that into a P2. This moved him into P2, and he stayed there, held a good lead, had equal pace to Sergio at that point, was able to keep that gap around 5 seconds to the Mexican for the remainder of the race, and really drove a strong race. And it's a pace that I wasn't expecting, to be honest with you, coming in this weekend. To have the pace to hold both Ferraris and Sergio behind him, I think was a very impressive deal.
Yeah, no, it was great. I think they surprised themselves, actually. The cool weather helped them a little bit, evidently. So it kind of leans towards that they're really surprising themselves, then they're really heading in the right direction, right? They've got upgrades coming to the next race. So, McLaren are going from strength to strength. They're consistently competitive. There's the drop much, and Lando is kind of keeping his foot firmly on the desk, as you like to say right now. He's doing a great job in separating himself from Piastri, which was no mean feat. Good job all around for Lando.
Yeah, that was a terrific job. Oscar struggled to find the pace that Lando had, and even. He had that car damage, and totally understandable that he was going to be off pace. But even before that, Paul, before he got the damage from this Lance Stroll Ricciardo thing, he was struggling to find that pace and that tire management. I think he was struggling with those tires compared to what Lando was capable to do. It kind of just reminds me. It's not an indictment of Oscar in any sense of the way. But it does kind of remind me of the struggle that Leclerc had when he came into F1. Remember, he struggled with those tires quite a bit, and how to manage those tires and really work. And he kind of took a step back, went to the drawing board, and worked really hard to get his tire game up to par with all the other drivers. And I think that could be kind of where Oscar is right now. It's really finding the windows, finding that performance, really managing those tires and being able to manage the tire to great effect. And I think it's much easier to say that than to do it.
Yes, no doubt Piastri has pace on a one lap, on good tires, everything. Probably the hardest thing to do in Formula One is manage these tires. And this is a track that is very difficult. Right, think about all that loading in turn one and the high deg. Yeah. If anyone's going to be showing up a little bit by not quite getting around the tire thing, it would be at this track. And that's nearly like his last. He's got a couple of things. He just needs a couple of things in the box, and that comes with experience, which he doesn't really have. Certainly not compared to Lando. And so I don't think it's awful. I think on any given day he can beat Lando, but Lando's got he has the more experience, and he did a great job with it. With the damage, it's amazing. Even our GT cars, we get a little aero damage, and you're not going to lap time. The lap time, you're going to struggle. You're going to pick up understeer, oversteer, all kinds of things. And just imagine how that's amplified in a Formula One car. It's the death to your other drivers get a little bit of aero damage, and they pretty much stopped it after that because there was no point in carrying on. Everything is one big thing, one little piece of the puzzle away from all the hours and hours of aerodynamic, detail, and the car can drop off dramatically. So I actually, for what happened, I was actually surprised he was actually able to have the pace that he did and able to score points.
Yeah, me too. Let's see. Talk about Ferrari. Charles Leclerc, P4. Carlos Sainz, P5. Carlos and Charles didn't have a great start. They dropped back a couple places. There was some internal discussion with both drivers at this point about doing a one-stop versus two. So they were having this conversation
Plan
back
D,
and
was
forth.
it?
But
Plan
I think
D?
that's Plan D, yeah. As in dumb. So Plan D, I think...
We're going to dumb move this time. No, Ricky. No, Ricky.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I think really ultimately the safety car put paid to that discussion. I think it pretty much forced their hand at that point, and impacted their option of whether it was one or two. And at that point, they changed it. Despite that, though, when they were on the same strategy the others, their hard compound tire performance just wasn't there compared to McLaren's. Didn't seem to find that pace for either of them. Leclerc managed to undercut Perez, but couldn't hold the Mexican off and settled for fourth place. It's not that it was a bad drive, but I definitely think that little shove that Carlos gave him on Saturday, that didn't go down well with the monogasque. I think maybe Charles was like, okay, is this what we're doing? Yeah, okay, all right. So come Sunday, hell or high water, he was going to finish ahead of Carlos, and he did. But
he's pretty tired of everyone saying, "Wow, Carlos is doing so great this year."
Everybody's saying, "Oh, wow, they're letting go of the wrong guy."
Yeah, it's not going to chances. No.
Yeah.
No.
No. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Charles had the upper hand. Yeah.
Yeah, he did all weekend. Carlos was, he was in full tire management mode, was able to bring it home fifth ahead of Russell, stay ahead of George Russell. Despite that, this track definitely no friend of the Ferrari chassis, and that's interesting. Because it's one of those areas I think Ferrari have kind of solved from last year is that tire sympathy,
absolutely.
And yet they really struggled here.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of an anomaly, this track, really. They're both in design and how the surface and everything like that, and it can be if you're a little off, you're a lot off, right?
Yeah, and they call it a front limited circuit, and maybe there's a story there about Ferrari's better on their tires. They have much more tire sympathy this year, but not so much if it's front limited. I don't know. Yeah.
Right, most tracks are rear limited, but this one was those brutal long sweeping turns.
Yeah. So maybe there's a story there for the rest of the teams. Talk about Mercedes. You had Lewis Hamilton in P9, started in P18, had a bad qualifying session. George Russell in P6. Russell had a good start, got ahead of the Ferraris, but had the unfortunate moment of boxing just before the safety car, so that did not help him. So as we always say on the podcast and race review, safety cars is going to benefit some, it's going to hurt others, and it's a luck of the draw. Luck of the draw. And in this case, it hurt George. Despite that, though, had a good race, finishing 2 places ahead of where he started, and that was about what he expected from the car. George also said that the 2 cars had completely different setups from each other on Friday and Saturday. So Lewis had alluded to dramatically different setups, and I think Nico Rosberg said Lewis was using that as an excuse, but I think either that's true, and they sent George out to suggest that Lewis was correct, or I don't know. But anyway, George said 2 different setups. They're trying to find. Ultimately, they're trying to find pace. But I would say on balance, though, I think George had a good race with the equipment he had.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I bet Mercedes are wishing it was back to the old testing or as long as you want, because they've obviously got a lot to learn to try and fix this car, which you have to do it virtually now. And taking that step in the actual race is actually a bit of a Hail Mary, quite honestly.
Yeah.
You think they're a bit more fine-tuned with that. I see slight differences, but it seems like they're really chasing a lot of things on this car because they haven't found any pace anywhere that we've seen anyway. But so I think for George to finish 6th, I think is actually a positive for them and where they're at right now.
Yeah. I agree. Lewis gambled for grip, started on the softs, and while he made up a spot, he was not happy with really any of the tires. He would radio back that this tire's not good. I'm losing ground with this tire. Just bottom line is Lewis was not a happy bunny in that car, and not happy with the tires, despite being nonplussed. Though he said. He made most of the bad setup. He said he made a setup change to the car on Saturday, and he had to pay the price. It was the wrong direction for the car setup. So that's what he said after the race.
Why didn't he just leave it as it was from the very beginning? Isn't that what he was saying?
Yeah.
Last race said, we're messing with it, guys. I'll just drive it.
Yeah, just pull it out of the box. I'll drive it that way.
Yeah, if we stop messing around with the car, it's going to be fine. Just be the best car I've ever driven.
Right.
Yeah,
he did get it. He did get an assist from the safety car. That helped him get up to P9. And so while it cost George, it benefited Lewis and got up to P9. There's nothing to write home and nothing to crow about or be excited, and he wasn't. But I would say it's a decent recovery from starting P18 and getting back in the points.
I mean, absolutely. It was to get any points out of that situation. It's one thing to be back in 18th for some penalty reason or whatever. He was back in 18th piece, which is not good. But it was a struggle for him. It was a dogfight for him to get up to those points. So kudos to him for actually getting it there, especially with all the whining that he was doing in the car, especially on that first set of tires.
Yeah, he didn't like them.
No, he didn't like it. But you hear it, you hear the little excerpts on the TV, and who knows what else's conversations are going.
Yeah, right.
But right now they're throwing the negatives out there, whatever Lewis says. So maybe he was going, "Wow, this is the bar on the mediums," but I don't know.
Yeah. So when you're on the pit wall for harder racing, does Roman or the drivers call in and complain and bitch and moan about their tires a lot?
Oh yeah, they bitch and moan about a lot of things. Yeah, especially other drivers as well. Who's driving that car? He's an idiot. Yeah. So a lot of that goes on. Yeah. Actually, the Michelin's on. Michelin's are actually great.
Yeah. So
in IMSA, so not usually a lot of. Yeah. It's about getting the window in the tires is usually the bitch, and you get a little bit wrong, they can feel it instantly.
Yeah. So Paul, everyone's 9-0 for your road car. If you were going to go out and buy a new set of tires, would you buy Pirellis or Michelin's?
I would buy Michelin's.
I thought so.
Sorry, did I hesitate?
Yeah. I've had both and I like both.
Yeah, I like them. I think overall Michelin have got this secret sauce in them, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But they inherently have a car which is a tire that has performance and longevity. Pirelli do make some fast. Majority of Pirellis, for some reason, they're very good at straight line accelerating, straight line braking, but you put a little yaw in it, and that's when the Michelin start to go a bit above. Probably the Pirellis could out-drag you, but the Michelin's will out.
Interesting. So there you go.
Yeah.
It's Paul Charsley approved, Michelin.
Yep. I'll call Michelin up and it's my next set of tires.
Right. Just make sure Michelin send you and I the proper set for tires for our cars.
Yeah. That's right.
They should comp us on the free ad. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah. Let's see. Aston Martin, Lance Stroll, P16, Alonso, P7. Aston was a team that should have had a good weekend with Alonso on form all weekend, qualifying well, great start, running up in second early on. It's one of those things where it just kind of unraveled a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I got to thinking about it, from Alonso's standpoint, he lost 2 spots during the safety car period to Leclerc and Norris. At this point, the team put him on new softs on his car, and that meant he had to do another stop later on, which cost him several spots. He made the most of those new softs, tried to come back to 7th at the finish, but I suspect had they chosen the medium hard strategy or something, he may have finished higher, but having said that, they didn't have any hard compounds left, so they had to do what they did.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of the luck of the draw and how they use the tires going into the weekend. So it's kind of hard to armchair quarterback that thing when they didn't have a set of hards.
Right. And I think, some people are saying, they put the softs on, they're never going to last. Well, I don't think they ever thought they were going to last. They were going to have to stop again. So I think they threw the softs on to keep him as far up the road as they could, so that when he did the second stop, it would. If they put medium, he wouldn't have been able to make that ground up. So I think literally the softs were a holding place, even though actually I think he made a place up while he was on the softs and gave him that gap. So when was the time to stop for those mediums, and it was go time, he was actually closer to the cars ahead, and he actually did make the most of that whole situation. I think the team strategy was actually pretty good considering their tire allocation. I guess the strategy call would be, did they use the tires effectively before the race, or in the right order and in the right way? But he as usual, Alonso flatters opponents, but there's only so much he can do, and only so long he can hold on to that by being Alonso, right? So.
Yeah. On one hand, it's a shame they couldn't score more, but to be fair, to your point, Paul, I think Alonso may have flattered that car's ability a tad, giving us the impression that it may be a P2 car, and I don't think it was a P2 weekend. I just think that's the Alonso factor, right? And, at nearly 43 years old, his reflexes are still ace. Paul. He caught that car on that last turn. Oh my gosh, man. That onboard, his hands just instantly caught it, and that was going at a rate of speed.
Yeah. He had to be ready for that. Yeah. I mean, he knew he'd committed. He could feel the car tracking out wide. He's like, okay, I'm like this. And reaction is one thing, but there has to be anticipation with it.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what Schumacher used to have as well. You have to anticipate what's going to go wrong before it happens, because reaction is one thing, really not in time, especially at the speed of a Formula One car. You still have to kind of feel what's going to happen before, just be ready for it. And I think that's exactly what Alonso did.
Yeah, exactly. Lance, tough weekend, got beat up in the press and social medias. He forced Hülkenberg wide, no penalty there, but then he hit Ricciardo at the restart, ending Dan's race, prompting a radio message from Lance saying either this guy's an idiot or these guys are idiots. That didn't go down well. Dan was not happy with that at all. And it's one of those deals, it's Dan's point was he looked at his onboard and Lance wasn't looking at Dan. He was looking at the apex, and he said, on a restart behind a safety car like that, it's all heads up. You've got to watch where you're going to have your race ruined like that. Dan, I think, was pretty upset with the implication that it was his fault.
Absolutely.
I think is what Dan was upset about. But anyway, not a good weekend for Lance, that's for sure. A lot of social media vitriol shoved his way.
Not a popular kid right now.
Not a popular guy. Nope.
No, I think it's. I don't think the situation was that horrendous. It wasn't, these things happen. Everything backs up really quick. You got to be on your game. You got to be as close as you can for the results. You get swamped up. So everyone's got to be on the rear of the cars, and what happened in front was what Alonso locked up, and then I think George locked up a little bit more, and it was just a concertina effect that is easy to be victim to. What you shouldn't do is make a lot of mouth about what people did in front of you when you don't have the full picture. It's hard to do in the heat of battle. I understand it, but you got to get the full picture before you make comments. And he made that comment obviously at the spur of the moment, and then Ricciardo got onto that.
Yeah.
Ricciardo is not in a good mood right now, so the honey badger is the honey badger. So he's angry. He had a shot at having a competitive run finally, and we know the struggles he's had this year. So I think compounded with what Lance said is Ricciardo's pretty much on an edge right now to just jump back, and so I understand why Ricciardo would be angry, because it really had nothing to do with him. A lot of angry jumping around. I think it was a bit overblown for what the situation actually was. It was everyone's reaction shouldn't have happened. I think was a bit out of order.
Yeah, it's happened. It's happened before many times. You think of Juan Pablo on Schumacher in the Tunnel of Monaco. You think of Lewis and Kimi, and then even in pit lane. You think, there's numerous occasions.
I mean, not just in Formula One, but in general.
It happens.
Yeah. I mean,
it happens.
Yeah. I mean, Formula One they starts as often as sports cars, and it happens a lot in sports cars, even to the best of them. Yeah. So it's a happenstance.
Remember Vettel and Hamilton?
Yeah.
Vettel and Hamilton. Right. Vettel ran to the back of Hamilton.
Baku,
wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
Baku, yeah.
Yeah.
So it happens. But anyway, let's talk about Haas F1. Nico Hülkenberg, P10, Kevin Magnussen, P15. Nico got shoved wide by Lance early on, put his head down after that, climbed back into the points. He also said it was a clean, faultless race from his side, and thanks to attrition, he said he basically scored that point as a faster team ahead of him retired, which is true. But they clearly aren't capable of running it. He said even though they finished, they're clearly not capable of running with the top teams yet, but that's why it's so important that qualifying they do well, he said. So point is, not going to run with the big dogs. Qualifying's huge just to give us track position that we might nip a point here or there, and that's exactly what he did this weekend.
Yeah, once again, the Haas has made massive gains, hasn't it? I mean, it was the joke last year. No matter where it qualified, it went back a sled, but it's not doing that. And I think Hülkenberg is doing a phenomenal job in that car. Magnussen can show some pace, but Hülkenberg's putting the whole races together, isn't he?
He is, yeah. Really, beefing up his CV for that Audi drive, that's for sure. It's going well for him.
Yeah.
Kevin started on hards and had a moment with Tsunoda that earned him a penalty. That didn't help. That put him behind. Ultimately, he had to stop for a front wing because of that. And then ultimately, he had a bad quality that left a lot to do on Sunday. And then he had the clash, and it was just pretty tough. They were starting on a one-stopper. They had to change that because the degradation was way too high for him. And it's, again, an interesting situation because, like Ferrari, I feel like that's the one thing Haas has cured this year is their tire sympathy, and yet he was having a lot of trouble with it this weekend.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it was a pretty bad move on Yuki there, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was a little aggressive. Is that what you guys call it, Paul? Was that aggressive?
Yeah, it just wasn't on. And he lost the car, obviously, and it slid up and took Yuki completely out. So 100% his fault there.
Poor Yukester. Yeah. Let's see. Alpine, Pierre Gasly, P13, Esteban Ocon, P11.
Oh, so close.
Steven brought up another one. Ericsson hitting Grosjean in Azerbaijan.
So much hitting Grosjean rather than Grosjean hitting other people. That's a surprise.
Yeah. Remember, he was always blaming, I think Ericsson hit me. It's like, wasn't even the same hit to him. So it was pretty funny. Let's see, Gasly and P13, Esteban Ocon, P11. There was only one set of upgrades this weekend. They gave those to Ocon. That made a lighter car. They seem to have worked, I would say, as he was sniffing points pretty much until Alonso made his way back up through the field and denied him that point. But I would say that while the upgrades didn't convert the Alpine to a race-winning car, it definitely did seem to help in finishing in P11. So not a bad race for either driver, but I think Ocon, made the most of it. Had some good battles there midfield, as did Pierre. To be honest with you, I think both of them were gunning it out there.
People were shoving him off the road.
Yeah, right.
Didn't Gasly get shoved off the road a couple of times? I think.
Was it Logan? Maybe.
Logan and someone else did too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think so did too. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. And Pierre had a mess of a pit stop. That didn't help him. Mechanic got knocked down. Hopefully he's okay. Despite that long stop, though, he had a few incidents on track. Pierre said that there was a lot to learn from this weekend. But I would say that interesting weekend. Both of them kind of spent the majority of that race kind of battling with the Williams at Albon. They had a lot of battles.
I don't think that's where they want to be playing.
It's not where they want.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's not where they want to be.
I think that. I mean, the chassis going, but man, the engine is just. How do you make up for that?
I don't know.
That low power. It's like you're gonna design a car that's better than everybody else to make up for the lack of power. I mean, it's literally, a drag on them till they can till the new engine regs come out. So it's difficult.
Yeah, it is. Let's see. Visa Cash App RB. RB. Daniel Ricciardo DNF. Yuki Tsunoda DNF. End of story.
End of story.
That's it. Yuki got taken out by Magnussen. Daniel got taken out by Lance.
Yep.
I said before this weekend, that I suspect this weekend is a weekend that you will see Dan with his new chassis beat Yuki.
And he did.
And I was right.
Yeah.
And he did. and it's not that I'm a Delphic Oracle, because I just feel like this weekend was kind of a make or break for Dan. He had got to turn it around this weekend. New chassis, you had better deliver. Yeah. And I think, to your point, Paul, that's why he's so pissed off, why he's so mad about the Lance thing, is because he's desperately trying to save his career in Formula One. This weekend, new chassis, beat his teammate in qualifying, doing well in the race. I think everything was lined up. This was his weekend to perform and really sort of open that account as to why he should be in Formula One. Had all of that taken away by Lance. And I think that's why you got that reaction.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know why Yuki was so off the pace, but
I don't know.
He had a bad week.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just a bad weekend for him. Williams, Alex Albon P12, Logan Sargent P17. Logan chose to make the changes to the car, which left him starting from pit lane, so he was always going to start in the back. To be fair, though, he was amongst the midfield battle for most of the day. Got a penalty for overtaking Hulkenberg. He said he didn't know. That's kind of a young guy, rookie-ish, didn't know, and he was surprised the team didn't tell him. And
this was when they were coming out of the
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was so close. I mean, there's no way he can tell.
Yeah.
That's a team mistake right there.
It is
not going over that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, Paul, and I think he was a little surprised the team didn't holler at him. So it's kind of hard for him to take that one on the chin.
Yeah, I don't know what I have for information on that kind of stuff. I know we got a penalty at Petit Le Mans once because we thought, all we knew what the driver said, but we had no data to go or video to go from to say, well, you came in the pits when the pits were closed, and go for that and got a penalty. So I would imagine the teams have a way to see that data very quickly. They should, at least.
Yeah.
Unless that's the guy back.
I would think so.
Back fixing them is the same guy that measures the lines.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Hard to get too critical, Logan, on that one.
Not at all.
Albon's race was going okay. He was fighting with the Alpines for most of the race. He said he was fighting a lot of tire degradation in that Williams, though. Alex says they know what their issues are. It's just the problem is it's not an immediate fix. And I think that's kind of what James said is in the middle of those medium speed corners. He said it was difficult to go from those slow speed corners to high speed corners and have any consistency out of that chassis. And that was adding to the degradation that I think Alex was chasing all weekend long, really.
Well, luckily the oven bell just went off for him, so they can put it out of the oven.
Right, send it to Miami. And then finally, you got Sauber, Kick Sauber, Stake F1, Bottas, DNF, Zhou Guanyu, a healthy P14 in his home race. Valtteri pulled off track mid-race with an engine issue. That brought out the virtual safety car and eventually the safety car. Took a long time to make that decision. Don't know why.
Yeah.
The marshals were struggling to
Took a long time to throw the virtual safety car onto itself.
It did. And you've got marshals, a whole horde of marshals around that car, rocking that car, trying to get into neutral, struggling with that car.
I did not understand why they were slow in reacting to that. I mean, they're listening to the comms on the radio. He's saying is the engine's blown up. Okay, we're going to stop right there. Well, you go to virtual safety car instantly as soon as you know you have marshals on the track, and they took their old sweet time. I don't know what they're waiting for.
I don't know either. You heard it. Yeah, you're right. Heard it say engine's gone. He parks up off the runoff,
big braking zone.
And if you've got a driver on the track or a marshal on the track instantly, it's So don't know what's going on there. Melton says in our chat, he says, it's been 5 years. They're rusty. Could be. So there's that. Joe had a good and emotional weekend, good emotional run at his home Grand Prix. It was great to see the crowd cheering for him, and he was passing for 14th, and the crowd's going crazy for P14. I think it's great.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I think it was great. He said it was an amazing weekend experience, as you can imagine. It would be amazing, and how overwhelming it would be for him. Joe also said that the first stint was tough. He had very little grip on that first stint. Towards the end of the race, they boxed for a fresh set. He said it was a bit of a cheeky move just to try to solidify that P14, which he did.
Rile the crowd up.
Yeah, that's what they were doing. Put on those soft late.
Why the hell not?
He had some good late race moves. Got up there, got the crowd engaged, got him excited for P14, and that's good. So that's where he finished.
That was great.
Yeah, it was great to see. Good race for Joe. Good on you, Joe.
Yes.
So let's see. Let's do some awards. Pass of the race. Woo! Pass of the race, Paul. Who'd you have?
Now, is it pass of the race or move of the race?
Oh, move of the race. Sorry, move of the race. What was I?
I'm going to actually say it's Joe on Sargent, because I think he must have passed him about 3 different times.
Yeah.
In the crowd, it's like, where's Sargent? Where's Sargent? I need a I need a patsy for my passes here, and every time the crowd go crazy. Probably like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I don't know how many. I think he passed him like 3 times in the same corner at some point in the race. So it was, I thought.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Alonso's pass on was also
good.
exceptional, but I just thought the Joe one was just more humorous.
Yeah. I had Alonso's catch.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was the move of the race, man. He was hunting it down. He was at full attack mode. Came around that corner, back end, steps out, and the wily veteran caught it instantly. Yep. I thought that was great. It's great fun to watch on the onboard anyway. Good fun. Let's see. Next one is Donkey of the Race.
We'll do it live. Get down.
All right. Who'd you have, Donkey of the Race?
Well, I'm going to give it to the race control marshalling nightmare that was with Bottas. It could, we've seen these things go wrong,
Somebody
very
get
wrong,
hurt.
And the delay was painful to see, and I thought that was a just thing that happened the whole weekend. Really.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna pile on, kick a guy when he's down. I'll go with Lance. I think that was. Unfortunate to end Dan's race, in Dan's race, or in Lance's race. So
just a Ricciardo fan. That's okay. I get it. It's all right.
No. I just feel like that's one of those things. You got Alonso. It's frustrating because I feel like Aston Martin was set up for a good weekend, and it just kind of
definitely isn't having a year compared to Alonso's.
No, he's not, and that's the last thing Lance needed. Was that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, all right, and then that leads us down to drive the race.
Get in there, Lewis.
Get down.
Yes, drive the race, Paul.
I'm giving it to Lando.
Me too.
Yes,
giving it to Lando. Yep, that's who I gave it to. He's a great job, Lando. Hey, for a little mailbag, Paul.
You've got mail.
I think his name was Joe, maybe Joe Wilson on the Facebook page. He asked, okay, so you had Lance hitting the back of Ricciardo, and that's Lance's fault. But what was the difference when Alonso braked and George hit the back of Alonso and they blamed Alonso?
George didn't even hit the back of Alonso. maybe he should have. I don't.
Well, ran off.
I don't see either one as penalty worthy, quite honestly. But I spouted that back then. I don't understand everything they call and the marshals. I mean, I did have hard enough time dealing with myself with our own race series, right?
Right. Well, one's during the race. It's one car.
They're wrong. That's all I can say. They were wrong.
They're wrong. Yeah. So one's during the race. I didn't agree with the Alonso thing either. I think you gotta, at some point, Paul, you're a professional race car driver. You got to drive heads up.
You got to drive heads up. But the guy that took us out in Long Beach, he got a penalty. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Last. Well, still ahead of us, but last because of the drive-through penalty, but didn't bring it into one piece again, did it? So
right. One does not simply spin Spencer Pumpelly.
No, he's an angry vegan
get away
now.
With it. No, sir. Yeah.
Angry. No, you don't want an angry vegan on your tail.
Yeah. No, because he clearly was hangry. Yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, that does it for this race review.
Yeah.
But we'll be back. We're going to be back. We'll be back next week.
Miami.
We'll talk about it. We're going to be back from Miami, Paul. Miami.
Where's the music? Advice me.
Oh, I can't play it. I get a copyright
really?
strike if I do
you
that.
You got a warning?
Yeah. Yeah. They copyright strike. Yeah. No. I played just smallest little snippet of Miami Vice theme to celebrate the Miami Grand Prix, and I get YouTube all over me like a herd of turtles. It's crazy.
Holy moly, that's crazy. Well, at least they're listening.
No, they're not. An algorithm is. Yeah. So who knew? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what's the harm? Yeah,
I did
crazy.
not.
So I got that going for me. So anyway, yes, Melton. Thanks. Huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. And we've got several joined us for the chat live. You can too. If you're a Patreon supporter, we offer an audience link so you can join us live during the recording. You can chat with us, engage with us during the recording, which Melton and Steven and everybody have. Appreciate that. As always, huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, because we could not and would not do this podcast if it wasn't for you. If you like the podcast, go over to your favorite podcast player. Give us some love with a nice, good rating over there. We'd appreciate that. As always, you can share your opinion. Just go to theparkforme.com and do so. Paul, what is next for the Heart of Racing?
Next, the Heart of Racing is Sebring. Going back to this time with the SRO cars. So, great track. Great track.
Nice. Yes. How long is that race?
That's just the regular hour-long races.
Hour-long.
Yeah, and then after that, a couple of weeks after that for SRO, we're going to do a 3-hour race at Coda SRO cars. This time in a long time, SRO have done longer distance races.
Both are SRO?
But in between that is Laguna, I think. A WEC race, I don't know.
I'm going to race here, race there. I don't know what I'm doing.
I got a kart race this weekend. That's what I do now.
I got a kart race. Fun.
Big money race. Yeah, big money race. 15 to win.
Nice. All right.
Got a new end. Everything's ready to go.
Good.
Hope I don't dump it.
Yeah.
Just running in the back of anybody.
That's fun.
Be bad.
Well, if anybody's around Fort Worth, they can come and see you race karts.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that's fun.
Not as big a crowd for that.
Well, yeah, right. Well, hopefully at the end they'll let you pull up on the front line like Joe and wave to your hometown.
That's right. Yeah. See Paul Charles Ma in a stick, face on a stick. That'd be good.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Right. People holding up big Paul Charsley faces.
That'd weeping. Be good.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, we'll be back next week to do it all over again. And until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camera, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.